the state, and my last two local titles that I held were Miss White River and Miss Historic Batesville. And so I really feel like I've spent a lot of time here. I've gotten to know the community really well, and so I feel like I'm back at home here today, and so I'm happy to be here. The second reason I'm really happy to be here is because I get to go into a lot of different settings. So some days I go to schools, some days I go to civic organizations, which might be organizations that your parents are a part of. But I don't get the opportunity to go into churches a whole lot, and I don't get the opportunity to tell my story with God. And so I'm really happy to be here today to get to do that. And it speaks a huge testament to y'all's youth group that you have here. I have gotten to go to a lot of communities around Arkansas, and I felt right at home here today just because of the atmosphere that you have in your church. So be super thankful for that, because that's something that not everybody has. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so I'm going to start off by telling you one of the biggest lessons that I learned through competing for Miss Arkansas, and that is to trust in God's timing. Because I feel like sometimes we have an idea in our head of how we want our life to go, right? Raise your hand if you've ever thought about what you want to be when you get older, or how many kids you want to have, or who you want to marry, or what you want to look like, right? Okay, you can put your hands down. We all think about those things, right? And that's great. It's so good to have goals. It's so good to have dreams. It's so good to think about those things. And it's so good to plan to an extent. But I think something that we always forget is it's really God's plan, right? And we're living out his plan. So I'll tell you my experience with this. I had never done a pageant in my whole entire life until I was 17 years old. And when I decided I wanted to go to pharmacy school, I needed a way to pay for that, right? All my whole life, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to teach like kindergarten, first grade, and I was really excited about that until I went to pharmacy camp, and I really learned that pharmacy is a way of being a teacher. It's teaching people about their medicine. It's teaching people about their health. It's teaching people about their illness. And so I really felt called to pharmacy as like a junior in high school. So as a senior in high school, I found out about the Miss Arkansas organization, which is the largest scholarship provider for young women in the nation. So every year at Miss Arkansas, they give away about $210,000 in scholarships. That's unreal, right? So when you start thinking about college and you start thinking about pharmacy school, that's 8 years of school, and I had no way to pay for that. So I entered in a pageant. I'd been a competitive dancer my whole life. I grew up around sports but was never really athletic. My dad was a coach. And I entered in this pageant, and I was thinking, if I get a couple $100, maybe I can pay for my books my first semester of college. I ended up going to Miss Arkansas. I won Miss Lights of the Delta that night. Went to Miss Arkansas and learned about the Miss Arkansas organization and fell in love with every different aspect. Not only is it a scholarship-based organization, so every time you win a local title or state title, you win a scholarship, but you also have service. There's also the 4 points of the crown are service, style, success, and scholarship. So there's so many things that go into the Miss Arkansas Scholarship Organization that I thought was just a pageant, but ends up really shaping you into who you want to become. And so I went to Miss Arkansas that year, and I learned all about what Miss Arkansas does on a daily basis, right? So I was crowned last June. I spent 2 months getting ready for Miss America. Went to Miss America in Atlantic City, spent 16 days there representing Arkansas. Since coming back, I have not stayed in the same town more than 36 hours. I literally live out of my car. I put 42,000 miles on my car, and every day I do something different. And so after going to Miss Arkansas the first year and learning about the job of Miss Arkansas, I had my whole life planned out, right? I was like, okay, one day I'm going to be Miss Arkansas. One day I'm going to go to pharmacy school. I'm not going to have to pay for it. This was all in my head about the things that I had dreamed about doing, which is great. But I wasn't looking to God for his plan and his timing and his actions and how I needed to get there. So I go to Miss Arkansas the next year as Miss Northeast Arkansas and placed third runner-up at like 19 years old. So I was like on cloud 9. I was super excited. I was like, okay, one day Miss Arkansas could be in my future. And like I said earlier, my dad's a college baseball coach. So he sent me to Miss America to kind of see the next level, right? To kind of see what it was like if I ever won, how I would, he just wanted me to see what Miss America was like. And so he sent me on this vacation where I should have been super excited to be there, but raise your hand if you've ever had this overwhelming sense of God telling you what to do. I'd love to. Oh, wow. Woo. Okay. Can you hear me now? I'll start being that commercial. So I had this overwhelming sense of God telling me, not yet, right? Not yet. It's not your time. Don't listen to what you think is your time. Don't listen to this plan that you've created in your head. Listen to me. And I didn't understand what that meant, right? You get those overwhelming feelings where you're like, okay, God's telling me this, but I don't understand. I don't get it. 3 months later, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which, if you don't know what Crohn's disease is, it is a disease that attacks your digestive system. So basically, my whole digestive system, 24 hours a day, is totally inflamed, and it makes it really hard to eat. It makes food not processed through my body. And so I was diagnosed with this thing that I'm going to have for the rest of my life that has no cure, that I have to take medicine for every single day. And I was so focused on my plan of becoming Miss Arkansas that I wasn't listening to God telling me, it's not time yet. You have to figure out how to medicate your body, how to take care of yourself, how to live every single day before you can ever live out this dream that you want to do. So I took a year, and I traveled, and I experienced life without pageants. I talked to a lot of people. I communicated. I worked on my social skills. I came back, and I thought, man, this is really my year. God told me to take some time. I did what he said. I got healthy. I went to Miss Arkansas and was 4th runner-up that year. And so then God was telling me, it's still not your time. You need to be thankful for all the opportunities that you have been given and learn from them, right? Learn from every single time that you've competed. Learn the dedication. Learn the time you've put in. Learn everything that this pageant system has given you before you can ever be Miss Arkansas. And so that was my 3rd time competing. I decided to come back for one more year. And really my goal was not to be Miss Arkansas. My goal was to fulfill what God was telling me to do. He was telling me to learn from the experience, no matter what the outcome was. It just so happened that I won this year, and I'm really thankful for that. But that wasn't what I was looking for out of it. I was looking for the experience. I was looking for the lessons. And when you're looking for the right things that God is telling you to look for, then he can put you in places and give you opportunities that you've always dreamed of, right? Like being Miss Arkansas. So that's one of my faith stories. I really think this faith story that you were talking about, it's really interesting because you might not have one, you might have multiple. And I really feel like that is what I'm here to do, is to share the multiple times that God has really impacted me in my life. So, like I said earlier, I started off mainly for the scholarship opportunity, which the Miss Arkansas system has paid off my undergrad and pharmacy school, which I'm really thankful for because I spent so much time competing for the title. But what I really fell in love with was the service aspect. And so I'm going to tell you a story. When I was about 11 years old, my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer for the 3rd time. And cancer is something that has affected everybody in this room in some sort of form or fashion, right? And so she was diagnosed with breast cancer and then Hodgkin's lymphoma, and after beating those 2 forms of cancers, because of the treatments and the radiations and the chemotherapy that she went through, she was diagnosed with leukemia. So I was about 11 years old, and I watched my grandmother go through basically this death process, right? She was dying. Doctors told her that she needed a bone marrow transplant in order to live, and she was unable to find a donor through the National Bone Marrow Registry. So they told her the closest match she could find on the registry was about a 3 out of 10 match, meaning that was about 30% chance that her transplant would be successful. And I like to say that my grandmother was stubborn in the best way possible because she really did not like those odds, like at all. And so she enrolled herself in an experimental trial at the time, which used umbilical cord blood for a stem cell replacement. And doctors told us and our family that this increased her chance from a 3 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10. So an 80% chance that her transplant would be successful. So she went through this transplant. She lived 9 months longer. And that's 9 months longer that I got with her and that my family got with her, and something that we'll never be able to get back, right? And so my family and I really felt like God was calling us to do something after she passed away. And so we researched, and we came up with an endowment, which if you have one of these transplants, you have to live within a 100-mile radius of the hospital after your transplant. And so we came up with an endowment that helped raise money for families like ours. So if you and your family were in this situation, it would help you in a financial way, basically. And so when I started competing for Miss Arkansas, I had to come up with a personal platform. And if you come across Miss White River or Miss Historic Batesville in your time while you're here, ask them what their platform is, because it's something that every Miss Arkansas contestant, every Miss America contestant has. And so when I was thinking about what should my platform be as Miss Arkansas, I was like, there's nothing better than something that's very personal to me. So I started looking up stem cell replacements and cord blood donation in Arkansas, and we're one of the only states in America that it's free to donate after a live, healthy birth. Technically, it would be thrown away as medical waste otherwise. So think about how many babies are born in Arkansas every single day, right? Every single baby has a chance to save somebody's life. And so that's what I get to go around. That's what I get to speak about. That's what I really feel like God is telling me to do. That's what I get to do as Miss Arkansas. So I encourage you as you grow up and as you go through elementary school, junior high, high school, college, whatever God is telling you to do, get up and speak about it. Get up and share about it, because inevitably you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping others around you. When I go into schools, I like to teach ways to donate. So I teach how to give your time and volunteer, how to give your energy and give 110%. And I always ask this question, and I'll come over to this side. Raise your hand if you've ever gotten up and you've said, man, I really don't want to go to school today. Right? Yeah. Okay, you can put your hands down. I always get the same answer to that. And so I like to teach everybody how to donate your energy. Think about your teachers and your principals and your counselors and everybody that's at school helping you be the best version of yourself, right? They get up and they give 110% of their energy to each and every one of you. And so we need to give 110% of our energy to them as well. So instead of thinking, man, I don't want to go to school today, think, I get to go to school today. Try that next time. I do that sometimes when I wake up too. And I teach how to give your time, your energy, your effort, and your kindness. And so I always tell this story about giving your kindness, okay? So when you're competing for Miss Arkansas, you do an evening gown, right? You do an on-stage question, you do your talent, but you also do a personal interview with the judges. And so that's about 10 to 12 minutes of them asking you whatever comes to their mind. They can ask you anything under the sun. And then you're given 30 seconds to really tell them why you should be Miss Arkansas. And so every single time I competed, I always said the same quote by Maya Angelou. And it really reminded me of you two, Brandon and Michael. Yeah, this really reminds me of y'all. She once said that people are going to forget what you say, and they're going to forget what you do, but they're never going to forget how you make them feel, right? And so I told the judges, as Miss Arkansas, I really feel like it's my job to make people feel, make them inspired and encouraged and happy, and I feel like that's what y'all do on a daily basis. So you're definitely in the right direction in what y'all are doing. And so this one day, I knew I was doing my job. I always get in my car and I think, did I do what I told the judges I was going to do? And this day, I knew for sure I did it. So I was speaking to a group of kindergartners, and this little boy came up to me afterward and he said, Miss Arkansas. No, he said Claudia. He said my real name. He said Claudia. He said, Claudia, every single day, my mom asked me if I had a good day. And I was like, well, what are you going to tell her about today? And he said, I'm going to tell her I had the best day ever because I got to meet Miss Alaska. And even though his teacher looked at me and was like, we don't know what state we live in, even though he thought I was Miss Alaska, I knew I had done my job for that day, right? I had made somebody feel something. I made them happy. I made that little boy so happy, even though he thought I was Miss Alaska, that he was going to go home and tell his mom that he met me, right? And so I love sharing that story about that little kindergartner. And then the last thing that I want to share with you guys kind of reinforces the idea to get up and share your faith stories, whatever they might be. Because while y'all were sharing this, I thought of this instance right after I won Miss Arkansas. And one of my really dear friends had had a tattoo for a really long time. And I never knew what it stood for. It always had a Bible verse, but I never asked about it because it felt like it was something super personal. And he came up and he told me about it. And I won't tell his story, but I'll tell the Bible verse. It was Ecclesiastes 9:10, and that verse starts out with, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. And he said, this is how that plays into my life. And your hand has found the job of Miss Arkansas this year. So do it with all your might. And so I want to encourage y'all, because I think that's super applicable to any point in life we're at, whether it's something that you don't understand that you're going through, whether it's something that God's telling you to do that you just don't get yet, whatever it is, listen to it. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. Because if he wouldn't have shared that with me, I wouldn't go back on that verse every single day and think about it. And so you sharing your faith stories can ultimately help those around you inevitably share their stories one day too. So I encourage you to do that. Now, does anybody have any questions for me? Anything maybe about my job or me? Do you have one? You forgot. It's okay. If you remember, I'll come back, okay? Do you have one? You don't. So I was actually born in Mississippi. My dad coached for Mississippi State University for about 15 years. And I moved to Arkansas when I was 10. So you have to have resided in Arkansas for at least 6 months, go to school there, or work there. So that's how you are eligible. It's not very heavy. You can try it on later if you want. Somebody tried it on earlier today. Any more? Oh, I got a few over here. Okay. Yeah. When is my birthday? My birthday's May 15th. I'll be 23, and I have a dog named Phoebe. She's a year old, and she's a mini poodle. She's really sweet. My favorite type of diamond or crystal? Probably a real diamond. Or this aquamarine color. I like that one too. I was, yeah, both times at Miss Arkansas and Miss America. Okay, these 3 questions, and then I'll go back over this way. Can you remember? Do you know it? How many trophies? I don't know about trophies. I have crowns, but no trophies. I'm not that cool. The T-Rex is my favorite dinosaur. Great question. Any more questions? Over here? Well, it's been a pleasure. I like to say that I have the best job in the whole entire world for just a year, and I'm really happy it brought me back here to Batesville, back here to be with each and every one of you. So thank you for having me, and thank you for your attention.